Hey guys, this video is an introduction to the nervous system and perhaps my number one most important video. Let's start by examining nervous system. That'll be our central topic, and then from there we'll branch it out looking at it structurally and anatomically as well as physiologically or functionally. As I mentioned previously, the nervous system, we can break it down in two ways. We can look at its anatomy and we can look at its physiology. The structure of the nervous system deals with the anatomy of the nervous system. That is, what does it look like? What are some different structures? The function, on the other hand, deals with the physiology of the nervous system. So in this case, we don't care about what it looks like, but rather what it's doing, what it's responsible for. The structure we can then break down into two further subdivisions. We can examine the central nervous system in addition to the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system consists of two major parts, and the two major parts, as you can imagine, are central in the human body. They both lie in the dorsal body cavity, and they are the brain and the spinal cord. There are only two parts of the central nervous system. So whenever you hear the term central nervous system, it is going to be one of two parts. It will either be the brain or the spinal cord. It's the brain or the spinal cord and nothing else. On the other hand, the peripheral nervous system consists of everything that is not central. If it is not the brain and if it's not the spinal cord, it is part of the peripheral nervous system. It's in your periphery. To be specific, we have nerves that are connected to the brain, and they are called cranial nerves. In contrast, nerves that are connected to the spinal cord are called spinal nerves. In the human body, there are 12 cranial nerves and 31 spinal nerves. I wrote it this way because we have 12 pairs of cranial nerves as well as 31 pairs of spinal nerves, because there will be one on either side. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, etc. In the course Anatomy 113, so the course that you are taking, it is essential that you understand the 12 cranial nerves. That will probably be a different video, but you are expected to understand the name, the number, and the function of all 12 cranial nerves. We won't go into that in this video though, and let's continue with the structure of the nervous system. I'll draw a quick image just so we can get a solid understanding of the difference between central and peripheral. The central nervous system is essentially the brain and the spinal cord. On the other hand, any nerve that lies in the periphery would be a cranial nerve if attached to the brain, or a spinal nerve if attached to the spinal cord. There will be 12 cranial nerves, which I'm not going to draw 12, and there will be 31 pairs of spinal nerves which are attached to the spinal cord. Again, there will be 31 in this case, which I have not drawn in the image. In terms of function, we have some neurons that carry messages into our central nervous system, into the brain, and we have other neurons that carry messages away. Neurons that carry messages into the central nervous system are called sensory neurons. And neurons that carry information away from the spinal cord are responsible for producing movement. In this sense, we call it motor neurons. Let me reiterate that again. Sensory neurons carry information from the outside and bring it into the body. On the other hand, motor neurons will take the information that we synthesized in the brain and send it out towards the body to perform a movement. Motor neurons can then be branched into two subcategories, and they are called somatic and autonomic. And what do these words mean? The word somatic comes from the word soma, which means body, and the word somatic means that this action is voluntary. All somatic actions are voluntary. For example, if I decided that I wanted to kick a soccer ball, that would be somatic. I'm telling my leg to kick a soccer ball. On the other hand, autonomic actions are involuntary. This means that my heart is beating and I'm not telling my heart to beat. And my stomach is performing some peristalsis, I'm doing some digestion, but I'm not voluntarily telling my stomach to do so. These actions are involuntary, or in other words, autonomic. Quick summary, motor means movement. We have two types of movement. They can be voluntary or somatic, or they can be involuntary and autonomic. Both of these are movements. Then we can break down autonomic responses into two subcategories. We can turn it into either sympathetic responses or parasympathetic responses. And what do parasympathetic and sympathetic mean? Well, if a response is sympathetic, the other term for the sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight system. This means that when you're using your sympathetic nervous system, your body is set up for a stage of excitement, for exercise, or for embarrassment, for excitement, for enthusiasm, or even for fear. It is for strong emotions and things that get you riled up, things that make you intense or energized would be sympathetic. Most of the time, however, you will see it written in the terms fight or flight. The sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system typically bring about opposite effects. If one is excited or activated, the other will be inhibited. The parasympathetic nervous system is often called the rest and digest system. The two are antagonistic in the sense that if one is on, the other will be off. Let me give you an example. Let's talk about the heartbeat. So in which scenario, sympathetic or parasympathetic, will the heart beat faster? Well, that will be sympathetic because you want to pump more oxygen and get more blood to all of your muscles because you are probably either fighting or running away from something undesirable. Another example is digestion. Will you have a lot of digestion happening in the sympathetic case or in the parasympathetic case? Well, you will have more digestion happening when you are in a parasympathetic state because it's the state of rest and digest. So you can think of it as lying around and reading a book, or you might be eating, watching TV, or just in our typical state is parasympathetic. I'll probably be making another video on this with more examples such as the kidney and the bladder. So similar to our structural example, let's color coordinate our functions. Sensory information will come in. It is coming into the spinal cord or into the brain. Information is traveling towards the central nervous system. In the case of motor neurons, information is being carried outwards. Information is leaving the central nervous system, leaving the brain, leaving the spinal cord, and traveling back out. You can think of it as sensory information is taking information from the receptors and bringing it into be synthesized and be processed. While motor information, it has already been processed. The information has already been integrated and we've already decided what we're going to do. In this case, we can then send our information from the brain or from the spinal cord and send it out to an effector organ. So whether that's a muscle or whether that is the heart or the digestive tract, it could even be a gland like a sweat gland. It can be voluntary, such as skeletal muscle. I might want to punch something or to write down my notes. It would be skeletal muscle or somatic, voluntary. Or it may be autonomic. For example, telling my heart to beat faster, or constricting or dilating my pupils. These things would be involuntary or otherwise autonomic. The autonomic nervous system can then be broken down into its sympathetic case and the parasympathetic case, which have opposite responses depending on the situation. One final thing before I finish off this video, let's talk about a few abbreviations that you'll see. The central nervous system you will often see as CNS, and the peripheral nervous system shortened into PNS. The autonomic nervous system is often abbreviated as ANS, or even the involuntary nervous system. Well, let me write down ANS. Its subdivisions, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, are written as SNS and PSNS, using a small p and capital SNS. That's pretty much it as the introduction to the nervous system. Remember, it is extremely important that you understand the difference between somatic, between autonomic, between sympathetic, and between parasympathetic. It's also absolutely critical that you understand what is a component of the central nervous system and what are components of the peripheral nervous system. I highly recommend drawing this out and really understanding which parts are the structural components and which parts are functional. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful, and let me know if there's other videos that I can make. Thank you.